Hello and welcome to the African World. I'm Kwame Clement reporting.
And I'm Wilma Red.
On the program today, at an exclusive interview with U.S. Congresswoman Karen Bass on the empowerment of the African woman.
Africa cannot move forward without women moving forward.
Also on today's program, we took a look at the United Bassa Organization of Liberia, UNIBOA, as it meets in Maryland, USA for its convention, in which it will be raising funds to help the Bassa people in Liberia. But we begin with this exclusive interview with U.S. Congresswoman Karen Bass.
Our special guest on the program today, Representative Karen Bass of the 37th District of California. She was elected to her third term representing the 37th District of California in 2014. She's the ranking member of the House Subcommittee on Africa and Global Health. Africa is her passion, and fostering U.S.-Africa relations has been her focus. She led the initiative in her first term to renew the third country fabric agreement of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which is crucial to developing trade relations between the United States and Africa and creating job opportunities in Africa. It's our pleasure to have you today on the program.
Thanks for having me on.
And I'm Kwame Clement. With me is Wilma Red. I'll be on extended assignment, and she will be taking over the program in my absence and holding the fort here. Welcome, Wilma.
Thank you so much, Kwame, and welcome to the African World, Representative Bass.
Representative Bass, as you know, the African Union recently launched Agenda 2063, whose broad goal is to create a prosperous, integrated, and peaceful Africa. How important is the attainment of the goals of the Agenda 2063?
So for Africa to prosper, one of the things that's critically important is for there to be integration of the regional economies, for there to be transportation, to address a lot of things related to trade. All of that will allow Africa to economically prosper. And I believe, frankly, that when Africa prospers economically, that's going to deal with a lot of the other issues that we have, issues of democracy, issues of conflict. I think what's key to all of those is the economic prosperity.
What role, Madam Representative, do you see the U.S. playing in helping Africa achieve the goals of Agenda 2063?
At different points in time, we've been the #1 trading partner with the continent of Africa, and obviously that's different depending on the countries. And so I think that we have a lot to offer, and one of the most important things I think we have to offer is the African diaspora that's here right in the United States. And one of my goals is to increase linkage and communication and partnership and business and trade between the African diaspora in the United States, the African American diaspora, with the continent of Africa.
Now, crucially, the African Union also recently declared an initiative called Empowerment of Women. How critical is the empowerment of women to attaining the goals of Agenda 2063?
Africa cannot prosper if women do not prosper. We all know that in many African countries, women are the hub of agriculture, women are the hub of a lot of the economy, and so the prosperity of women is absolutely critical. Africa cannot move forward without women moving forward.
Well, let's talk about some specifics in terms of women empowerment. Education, for example. What can or should be done?
There are countries on the continent of Africa that are exemplary in terms of the participation of women. And I would cite Rwanda as one. In terms of its parliament, I believe it is majority women at this point. Many of the African countries have quotas in terms of how many women have to be in their parliament. We know that the head of the African Union is a woman. We know that Africa has had women presidents. So when I meet with a lot of international delegations, and it's always funny to me because when I meet with African women, they come and they want to hear about Congress. And they're always shocked when they find out that the U.S. Congress only has 17% women. And so many African countries are ahead of the United States. So that's on the positive side. And I also think it's critically important to talk about Africa from a positive point of view and not just what the challenges are. Now, having said that, some of the challenges are early marriage, which then leads to early pregnancy, which also contributes to the maternal death rate. Because if you are having babies too young, your body's not ready for it, you can wind up dying in labor or during pregnancy. And then, of course, if you have an early pregnancy, you are likely to drop out of school. And so all of those issues are critical as well.
Wilma Red, is here with me. She co-produces the program, and I will be taking an extension assignment tour, and she will be holding the fourth here, and she's here. Wilma.
Thank you so much, Kwame, and welcome to the African World, Representative Bass. As an African woman, you've talked about some of the positive things, and we would like you to share your views about education specifically, because many of our girls don't get an opportunity to go to school.
Right. Well, I think, clearly education is tied to economic prosperity, and education is absolutely important. But that is where I think that the United States might be able to be helpful in terms of educational partnerships. But I would wish that most of the African countries would move toward a free universal education system, and you know that that's not the case right now. But I definitely think that that should be the goal. And then again, to the extent that women are educated, to the extent that women see that they have a future, or girls rather, see that they have a future, that keeps them in school. That helps them not get married before the age of 15. And so those are issues that I think are all connected to education.
We also find that in the areas of science and technology, girls lag behind. There are more boys in STEM programs across Africa, perhaps across the world. What can be done to get more girls into science and technology program in education?
Well, and that's certainly a problem in the United States, and so as we seek to solve that problem here, and in the United States, it's not just a problem with girls, it's a problem with African Americans, period, boys and girls. And so I would just say to the African countries that we have to work with girls at a young age and get them to understand the relationship between the math that they're learning in first and second grade and the potential careers that that could lead to as they develop into young women.
I know you work a lot with the AGOA program. The African Growth and Opportunities Act, which is an act of Congress that allows duty-free goods to come from Africa and be sold here in the U.S., is an area where you do a lot of work. What can be done to get more women involved in trade, not just locally, but into trade with the U.S. and other countries outside of Africa?
One of the main areas of AGOA is the textile industry. And who works in the textile industry in Africa but women? Some of the other products are agricultural related, and who works in agriculture? It's women. So I think that is already happening, but what needs to happen now are small businesses that are run by women, not just women workers. You understand what I mean?
Absolutely.
So along with AGOA, there is also programs within the U.S. State Department that promote entrepreneurship amongst women. And so the combination between AGOA and then a program called AWEP, which is the African Women's Entrepreneurial Program, AWEP, those need to work together. So we want to move women from being employees to being employers.
We already talked about the gains that are being made. I don't know if the U.S. would, or other countries in the world would benefit from what the African Union did. They got their countries, all the African countries, to commit to 30% of women, setting aside seats in Congress, seats in the government. What do you think about that idea?
Well, that idea in this country is called affirmative action and a quota system, and it was attacked fiercely. So I think it's an excellent idea, but it was an outgrowth of the civil rights movement. And in the 1960s, for a very short period of time, we had affirmative action, but it was attacked in every way, legislatively, at the Supreme Court. And so although I think that it would be a good idea, it would not happen in the United States in that manner, especially in terms of setting aside seats for women.
Can you describe President Obama's policy on Africa and perhaps specifically for women?
Right. Well, there's actually a lot of different parts of President Obama's policies in relation to Africa, and I think that it's going to be one of the untold stories after he leaves the presidency, because I think his policies have been very good. I'm looking forward to him going to Kenya. I think that's going to be tremendous, a very exciting time. But, one of the programs specifically is the one I mentioned, the AWEP, the African Women's Entrepreneurial Program, is under his leadership at the State Department. There's a program called Feed the Future, which is focused on agriculture, which we know is dominated by women. And what Feed the Future is it's a partnership with U.S. companies and African countries where U.S. companies are sharing their scientific knowledge, which allows the farming to be done in a much bigger and better fashion. And so I think those are two specific programs that come to mind.
Yeah, we were wondering also what can be done to give women more access to credit, to loans, and to business opportunities in general.
There are other programs that address that, and that's really critical. And one of the most important are microloans, so giving women very small amounts of money that allow them to just get started. And I think that's been proven around the world to be very productive.
Well, Kwame is a lawyer, so he is particularly interested in these legal systems that actually constrain women.
Before I do that, Representative Baz, and talking about giving women access to political power, and I'm talking Africa and not the U.S., there may be problems even in some African countries we're implementing the quota system. But I suppose things can be done to spot young political talent,
Right.
to give them access to the political arena, and to mentor them.
There are a variety of organizations, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that focus on leadership development, recruitment, candidate development, and recruitment. So getting women on a grassroots level to begin to think about having elected office in their life trajectory. Maybe it's not what they're going to do tomorrow, but to factor that into something that they do, especially young women just graduating college, and how do you lay the foundation to run for office eventually?
And I'll pivot back to the issue Wilma raised about legal reforms. And to knock down those structural barriers to women empowerment, you need legal reforms,
Right.
giving women rights, inheritance rights. In Africa, well, a lot of them don't have
Raising
it.
the age of marriage, because in some countries where there either isn't a legal age or the legal age is very young, I mean, that's something that should be changed. Female genital mutilation is something that should be changed. Universal education, requiring education through kindergarten to 12th grade like it is here, or actually I think here it's maybe up to the 10th grade. But if education is mandated and then it's provided by the government for free, so those are things that I think would be legal reforms that need to happen. But they all come with a price tag. And I think that one of the things that has to be raised in a lot of African countries is many countries have unbelievable resources, and it is a question as to what they use those resources for. So how can you have, the world's supply of minerals, but yet you can't figure out how to provide education for everybody, or basic infrastructure? So I am hoping that as, activism and democracy movements spread, that people begin to look at the distribution of resources, especially when it comes to natural resource wealth.
We know that the African Union has declared the diaspora its sixth region. How could you get more African Americans involved in Africa?
I think that one of the most important things on my end, in terms of my responsibility and obligation, is to make sure that African Americans are knowledgeable about Africa. But then again, one of the biggest hurdles is it's very expensive to go to Africa. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I'm a member of Congress. I get to go often. If I wasn't a member of Congress, I wouldn't be able to go as often. And so there also needs to be specific outreach to wealthy African Americans.
What was your best experience in Africa?
The first time when you go as an African American and you go to Africa, and it's just the feeling of immediately feeling at home, even though your surroundings look completely different than anything that's around you. And when I got off the plane and people came and, said, oh, welcome to the motherland, all of that. And I looked at them and I was like, but you know what, I could see you in LA. I mean, so, and that, and I've been a lot of different places in the world. And so I don't walk off of every plane and feel at home.
You are a very successful woman in one of the most, perhaps the most powerful country in the world. How did you overcome these barriers that I'm sure you, as an African American woman in the U.S., must have faced? And who were the mentors around you who helped you get to where you are today?
Well, I have always had mentors around me, and I have lots of mentors here in Congress. And so, for example, I just left one, Mr. Charlie Rango, a representative from New York. As soon as I came here, I recruited him to be a mentor. And I have believed in every phase of my life, no matter what I was doing, to go out and look to see who'd done it before, because nothing is new. But what allows me to overcome barriers is my commitment and my values. It's a life work in terms of being committed to a fight for social and economic justice, whether it's in the United States or on the continent of Africa, is what drives me in life. And so if you're very driven by goals and a set of value, that really gives you the strength and the ammunition you need to overcome barriers.
Talking about the fact that Congressman Charlie B. Rango has been a mentor for you raises the issue that some have spoken about, that if women empowerment has got to succeed, men have got to be a part of it. I mean,
yeah. And I mean, I have women mentors and men mentors. I mean, I think especially within the African American context, and I think it's the same in the African context, we don't separate gender like that. Yes, of course you're fighting for women, but you're also fighting for men too. So I don't see a hard separation. I mean, if you look at the African American experience, you know, there's a lot of focus. For example, the president's focused on my brother's keeper, and there was some pushback and some criticism. Well, what about my sister's keeper? But you know, the plight of African American men is extremely critical. And so to me, I don't see a gender separation like that. You're fighting together.
Half of the world's population cannot be successful if the other half of the world's population is not vested.
But when you also, especially again in the African American context, you're both fighting against oppression. And you're fighting against a system that has its foot on your neck. And so you're not just fighting for one half. That doesn't work. You're fighting for both.
Well, let's look ahead finally 10, 20 years, 50 years, in fact. Where do you see the African continent?
10 or 20 years from now, I see Africa as being peaceful, prosperous, and really a leader in the world.
Also, let's look ahead 10, 20, 50 years. Where do you see the empowered woman, not only in Africa, but around the world?
I see the empowered African women showing women around the world how to lead.
Representative Karen Bass, our guest today on the African World. She's representing the 37th District of California, her third term, ranking member of the House Subcommittee on Africa and Global Health. And we covered the waterfront today, U.S.-Africa relations, Agenda 2063, the African Agenda 2063, how to empower women, what to do in the areas of health, education, agriculture, and knocking down the profound social and other barriers that impede women development. It's been our pleasure having you on the program today, Madam Representative.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here with us on the African World.
Thank you.
So long, everybody.
That was U.S. Congresswoman speaking on the empowerment of the African woman on the African World. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the African World. And now we take a look at this organization that is doing so much to help people in Liberia. UNIBOA was organized in January 1991 in direct response to the aftermath of the Liberian Civil War that left thousands of Liberians displaced. Ours is among organizations that lead in the development of not just the Bassa counties, but Liberia as a nation. The United Bassa organization was originally comprised of the three Bassa-speaking counties: Grand Bassa, Margibi, formerly the territories of Marshall and Gibi, and Riverses Territory, formerly part of Grand Bassa County. Montserrat County, in which the capital city Monrovia is located, later joined the United Bassa Organization, UNIBOA. After several meetings and discussions, the first convention of UNIBOA was held in Newark, New Jersey, bringing together the 5 founding chapters: Washington, D.C., Newark, New Jersey, Minnesota, Trenton, New Jersey, and New York. Honorable Elwood Dunn, Honorable Joseph Baju, and Senior Konwansia all served as guest speakers. The word UNIBOA in the Bassa language means the child has grown up, implying that it's time to take on responsibilities as an adult. Bassa people from Margibi, Riverses, Grand Bassa, and Montserrat counties, as well as people who are linked to them through blood and other relationships, are taking responsibility to tackle the needs of communities in which our people live. Application for membership can be submitted through our local chapters. Our guiding principles are to promote peace, unity, progress, and social awareness among the people of the Bassa counties. We are dedicated to perpetuating the Bassa culture and traditions. UNIBOA has initiated a number of programs in education, healthcare, and roads in our counties. Over $26,000 has been awarded in scholarships to deserving students. 8 students are enrolled in the United Methodist University and the University of Liberia. This number will increase to 20 students in the 2015-2016 academic year. 15 students are being sponsored in the Bassa Community College in Grand Bassa County. We plan to increase that number to 20 students. $18,000 was awarded for full scholarships and a monthly stipend of $25 to 9 students from Grand Bassa, Riverses, Margibi, and Montserrat counties to attend the nursing school at Mother Patton College of Health Sciences in Monrovia. 6 of them have completed and are now working in health facilities around the country. 7 bicycles were donated to teachers at the Temu and Darsaw elementary schools in Riverses County to help facilitate their transportation to work. Close to $3,500 was paid in salaries to 61 teachers in 9 schools in the Bassa counties. UNIBOA Clean Water Initiative is making a big difference in the lives of people around the country. A $3,000 hand pump was installed in Dorwien Town, Harmonville, Grand Bassa County, and 2 other hand pumps are being installed in Bassa Community, Montserrat County. UNIBOA answered the call of Riverses citizens to make roads more passable. We contributed $1,000 to the construction of Bagwani Bridge in Mowe, District Number 1. The organization also provided $2,200 as seed money, partnering with Representative Gabriel Smith towards the construction of a market in Hollandville, Grand Bassa County. UNIBOA also partnered with other organizations to provide 500 medical gowns to hospitals in Buchanan, Grand Bassa County, Firestone, and Marshall City, Margibi County. In another collaboration, UNIBOA helped ship a 40-foot container with educational materials such as notebooks and book bags, as well as food supplies, to schools in the Bassa counties. UNIBOA distributed buckets and medical supplies during the Ebola crisis in partnership with Clairview Baptist Church and other organizations. In addition, the organization advocated on behalf of victims involved in the Lac land dispute. UNIBOA contributed $3,000 towards erosion relief in Buchanan, Grand Bassa County. Given the dire health need throughout the country, with over 2 million Liberians without access to adequate health care, international organizations have declared a state of health emergency in Liberia. This is reflective in the high maternal mortality that can easily be prevented. UNIBOA is raising $16,000 to build 2 4-bedroom maternal waiting houses in Riverside County near clinics as midwife halfway houses, where women can be taken care of prior to giving birth. The Bassa people in Liberia and in the diaspora welcome your help as we continue to take measures to improve the deficient state of healthcare delivery in Liberia. Help UNIBOA as we strive to prepare the next generation of Bassa and Liberian leaders in our homeland and around the world for a peaceful, prosperous, and healthy future.
Well, that's our program for today. Our special guest has been Representative Karen Bass of the 37th District of California. I'm Kwame Clement for the African World. We'll see you next time on another edition of the program. So long, everybody. Hello, welcome to the African World. I'm Kwame Clement reporting.